real professional stuff. This is where 99% of knowledge workers get so frustrated and they're flipping tables because, yes, the boss is saying, hey, we got to use AI, we got to increase productivity. AI is amazing, but when you actually use it, it gives you vague things that are sometimes wrong, and that has insights that honestly is not worth presenting to anyone. So let me show you the exact 5 steps you need to take that is usually a week's worth for a consulting firm, and turn that into just under an hour, coming up with real insights that is actionable, that is insightful, that is actually generative when you bring it to a team to present, and you can facilitate conversations that are focused and actually move things forward. And stick around to the end because step 1, 4, and 5 are really going to change how you approach the presentation process and get something that is deep, insightful, and really going to wow everyone's socks off. Let me show you what that looks like on my laptop. All right, before I show you step by step how to get great AI presentations, we first have to understand, why do they suck now? What is the problem so we can actually target those problems? And there's actually a Harvard study that's done on this. They took consultants and they gave them tasks on creating slides. Okay, and even though this title doesn't really make sense, you know it's about knowledge worker and productivity and quality, which we care about because we know, right? Copilot can create presentations about cats, but we don't want cats. We want that deep, insightful, nuanced presentation that currently I can't create. So what they found is really interesting. There are 2 parts to it. And I think most people focus on the first part and they never bother with the second part, which is actually the crucial segment, which is, okay, so consultants using AI were significantly more productive, right? They complete 12.2% more tasks on average and completed tasks 25.1% more quickly. Impressive. Okay, and they produce significantly higher quality results. Right? More than 40% higher quality compared to a control group. So we're sitting here hearing this like, well, that's not my experience. How come it takes me so much longer? And at the end, I can't use this because it's all vague and not at all more higher quality, right? So that's where the second part comes in. And it is for tasks selected to be outside the frontier, which we'll talk about the frontier in a second. Consultants using AI were 19 percentage points less likely to produce correct solutions compared to those without AI. Aha, right? So actually, when tasks are outside of this frontier, which I'll show you the definition in a second, it makes you worse off. It's better if you didn't use any AI. And that's important to recognize. And what this frontier is referring to, if you come down here, is that we understand, AI has capabilities, right? And it's rapidly expanding, but it has capabilities, that are expanding but uneven. So when you choose knowledge work in the section where it still doesn't have that much skill and knowledge and data to work off of, it's going to give you worse results. So knowing that, we understand why an AI presentation about cats. Let's draw a cute cat. This one it can do because it's got so much data about cats, right? And it understands, there's only so many parts to it. We understand cats very well. But when you do an AI presentation on, market entry into online shopping in East Asia, let's see, based on our current capabilities as a company and which direction we should go to, it doesn't know what's going on, right? But the good news is actually with where AI is now, we can tackle that. We can give it the relevant information in the right steps. And one of the fundamental problems why the presentations suck is we say, okay, AI, here is my presentation, X, right? Do it. All right, so it does it, and then you judge this and you say, okay, yes or no, that's it. But as I've talked about on this channel, right, we need that input-output loop. So there's the input into your presentation, which needs to be good, and then AI and you have to process it, right? Process the input to actually get the signals, right? You can't just say, okay, look at these spreadsheets and give me a perfect presentation. We have to process it somehow in order to improve the quality of the output. And once we have the output, you need feedback, right? So currently, most of ours are just saying, hey, input your output and make it perfect. It doesn't work like this. We need to break the process down so that we can actually increase our probabilities of getting a good presentation. But it's not that complicated. Once we break it down, each step is really simple. So let's start with the first step, which is build your hypothesis. All right, let's write this down. Okay, step number 1, we are coming up with a hypothesis. And what this means is simply, based on what we know so far, do we have a hint as to which direction we're going? We're making an educated guess on the answer. So what you have is, you have to know the context, right? Let's just take that online shopping in East Asia market entry example, right? This is a market entry. Our company, let's say, has been really active in North America. We've done a really good job in the online shopping space. And now we're looking to grow. Okay, so we have all this research. We understand about online shopping in North America. Maybe we looked into Europe. Maybe we haven't. Maybe we looked into Southeast Asia. What is the context that we know already? What is that body of knowledge? You have to know that, right? And then we have the goal, which is, okay, we want to decide on one country to enter. Or maybe it's, we want to decide if this region is worth going into or if we should go somewhere else, right? What is the goal? Let's do a star here. And then what we want to do is, what is the insight we currently have, if any, right? Do we have any insights that we think, oh, maybe it's because our company has some sort of capabilities, or maybe we have some sort of synergy that will make, let's say, East Asia more attractive than somewhere else. And all of this AI does not know, right? It doesn't understand your company's context. It doesn't know what goal it is that you're trying to achieve. It doesn't know any insights that you might have. And so at this point, the human has to come up with a hypothesis. And the hypothesis, again, is just an educated guess as to where we think we should be going. So step number 1 for all of us should be that we spend, let's say, 30 minutes just doing a Google search, right, of finding it out. So let's give this a try. East Asia online shopping market landscape. Okay, and for 20, 30 minutes, we're just going to go through these and take a quick look. Let's say, oh, Euromonitor, interesting. All right, we read through this. Okay, there's lots of other countries, but seems like China, South Korea, Japan, Hong Kong, Taiwan, but seems interesting. Per capita spending is a bit low. So this, as you're looking at this, let's say your company has a more luxury-based experience in the North American market. Then you know, okay, I'm going to focus on higher spend, which looks like South Korea might be a good entry point. Or maybe it is, okay, we are, Amazon, and we think lower per capita spending, not a problem. We should actually maybe not focus on East Asia, but focus on Southeast Asia. That could be interesting, or South Asia. So, as you're looking through this, your mind has the context, the goal, and the insights in it already. So as you're looking at this data, you're going to come up with a hunch of, okay, beauty and consumer health, e-commerce. Okay, so what does that mean? Oh, here's different platforms. Do we have experience with these types of platforms? You're starting to, in your brain, your Rolodex, start to think, oh yeah, and then, our marketing team mentioned this. So you're going to get a really rich understanding, a really initial but rich understanding with nuance of what's going on, right? So let's say you look through this and Euromonitor, there's actually paywalled data, right? This is also another moment. Let me mention that here is proprietary data. All right, let's put a $sign here. Proprietary data that ChatGPT is not going to be able to access unless you download it or you can't access somehow, right? So let's say, oh, okay, my organization has access to your monitor, so I'm going to look into the database and find more details on this, right? Fantastic. This part AI cannot do for you, right? So already step number one, we need to just educate ourselves on, do I have a hunch, right? And maybe let's say, you are let's say this actually works better for you because you're looking for a more mature market because you want higher spend, and you already have offices in East Asia, but you don't have it in Southeast Asia. You have no idea what the situation is like. So now you have an idea, right? Out of East Asia, we probably think South Korea is the best because it matches the type of products we're going to sell. Okay, right? You spend 20-30 minutes just going through some of the sources, look into any proprietary data, connects it back to your context, your goal, and your insight. All right. Then let's get into the interesting part. With that, number 2 is then we get AI to do some deep research. And each platform that have their own version, I'll show you the ChatGPT one. I think that one to me is quite good. Gemini's version is also quite good. Let me show you on ChatGPT. All right, we're in ChatGPT, and before we get it to do some deep research, there's 2 things we have to set up. Number 1 is tools, and we actually have to turn on deep research. So you go to tools, you add this. Now, I want to mention quickly there's agent mode, and agent mode actually can do deep research as well. And why I'm not using it is because I compared the 2 side by side, and I like the result of deep research for a few reasons. I'll point it out to you as we go through the workflow. But you can use agent mode as well. It can do deep research, but choose deep research, and I'll show you why. The second thing to set up is your reasoning model. So there are, or setting up your model. There's 2 types of models. There's the reasoning model that starts with the O. Right, so you can see it says use advanced reasoning or best at reasoning. And then there are models that start with numbers. So GPT 4.0, great for most tasks. 4.1 for quick coding analysis. So these ones are quicker, but for deep research, we should use a reasoning model that can help you analyze what's in the context. All right, so that's our setup done. And now we want to give it a prompt. There's lots going on around prompt engineering, but the most important thing is you want to give it context. You want to be clear about your task, and you want to give it some limitations. So I've already pre-written mine. Here it is. So we are working on a market entry project in East Asia for online shopping. Could you look into the market landscape in East Asia? All right. So this is kind of like the general prompt. Now, what I want to do is give it a bit more context. Right, so we're saying for our company, we're focusing on luxury online shopping. All right, so focus on that. And the average spend is high, and our goal, right? So we want to be specific about this. Our goal for this entry project is twofold. Okay, number 1, we want to understand whether East Asia is actually an opportunity. And number 2, if it is an opportunity, then which one should we prioritize? And then I'm giving it some constraints by saying, do a SWOT analysis of the key countries. So this way, it knows out of everything that it can access, what is it going to look at and what am I actually trying to achieve? All right, so let's put this in. And the best part about deep research is it asks clarifying questions. Now, this is one of the reasons why I don't choose agent. Agent sometimes asks, sometimes doesn't. And I really wanted to ask me clarifying questions because by looking through these questions, it actually helps me understand the project better, right? So for example, it says, which countries are you considering? What kind of products are you selling? Are you looking only at online only players or hybrid is good? Are there any regulatory, logistics, or other considerations you care about? Okay. So that actually helps me narrow it down for it further. So let me just use dictate. Whoops. Number 1, we are considering all the markets that you mentioned. All right. Number 2, the type of luxury products, we carry all sorts of segments, but if you see a type of product that will do great as a first market to test out and easy to scale across the region, then let me know. I am looking at online and hybrid, but please separate the two when you give your results. And there's no particular concerns we have about regulatory, logistics, or cultural considerations. Okay, so we're just going to get it to transcribe that. And here we go. Now deep research is going to start. So let's give it usually around between 10 to 20 minutes, and let's see what it comes up with. All right, quick dog walk. And let's see, 13 minutes, we've got 14 sources, 76 searches. Let's see what they find. All right, so here we go. Asia Pacific dominates global luxury good consumption. China, Japan, 60%. Okay, CAGR 5%, outpacing growth in Europe or North America. So it's trying to answer our first question, is this an opportunity? Massive opportunity. All right, well, let's take more a deeper look at this. All right, so these look good. Numbers, digital adoption, highly connected. Okay, but Japan's usually, okay, yeah, here we go. Japan luxury buyer prefer like an omni-channel type thing. Okay, great. Consumer trends. This is what they're looking for. I mean, I think there's a bit more nuance here, and it depends, but okay, but that's fine. This is just an overview. All right, so then it goes into SWOT analysis. As we asked, they go market by market. Okay, blah, blah, blah. So I won't read this, but I want to see what its conclusion is. Okay. Country prioritization. Is it an opportunity? Absolutely yes. All right, which country to prioritize? Mainland China stands out as top priority. Okay, let's see. Higher complexity, but largest reward. Largest in value, strong growth, long term. Okay, open to online. Okay, so the risks are competitive and regulatory. If you want to do more gradual, could be Hong Kong. Oh, interesting. Okay. Lower barrier, and you get some of that cross-border stuff. Japan's and Korea, attractive second markets. Okay. So looks like their recommendation is China and then Japan, Korea. And then you can go into the smaller markets. Okay. Here is product segment for initial launch. Remember when it asked for the follow-up questions, that's what we talked about. And looks like it's talking about, okay, don't worry about size dependent things, high value to weight, just thinking through the shipping. I mean, this doesn't just apply to East Asia, of course. But this is good to know because you want, what we're trying to do here. Okay. Let's write this down. What we're trying to do here is we're doing sense checking. Okay. Number one is, does this actually make sense based on my knowledge from, let's say, my prior stage one quick research? Is it generally, are we understanding the same things, right? The second one is we're looking for a gap. So can I find something surprising that I didn't know before? That either is a place that I need to dig into further, or it's the AI that's actually missing some important nuance. And you want to be able to identify that so you can fill that gap. Whether it's telling AI the relevant context so that it can look into that area, or it could be that for you it's like, oh, I never really thought about this Hong Kong to mainland China connection. Tell me more about that so I can educate myself more on this. So through this, as you'll read, you see that all of this, right, that it took less than 20 minutes to do. Usually back in consulting, this was a good day of work by probably 2 associates. Right. So this is great just to get a general sense of, okay, the market looks like this. Now let's dig deeper, right? Everyone's saying, oh, AI results are crap, right? It's so general. But as you can see here, what you're doing is, okay, I'm sense checking, things make sense, I see the gaps, and now we're going to ask questions about those gaps. And it's going to give us really rich and nuanced answers that you can't get from just saying, hey, create a presentation for me on market entry into East Asia on online shopping, right? Okay. The other thing I will write down here is we're starting to see where are the cross-functional talking points. So what happens is when you're going through creating a presentation of this sort, usually you're looking for moments where you can have a conversation with your cross-functional leaders, stakeholders who have different experiences than you, who have different knowledge sets than you. And you want to be able to draw out the best of them and have a productive conversation. So by seeing things like, oh, here's the breakdown of things that we need to consider. Like, okay, what are some of the iconic products? Marketing probably has a list of those, right? Minimal fit issue. So when we have a conversation with ops and our logistics team, we can probably think through of all of the SKUs that maybe we carry, which ones are we actually going to prioritize, right? It's a very productive conversation to have. Same thing with the shipping efficiencies, talking to logistics, and establish online buying behavior, right? So maybe actually the marketing team has a deep dive into this that is more nuanced to not just what ChatGPT can do, but you have proprietary data around this, right? That's a great beginning to say, oh, marketing, like, do you have something like this? Should we create something like this? Can we get specific data on this set of customers or something like that, right? So as you can see, this is, depending on how you use ChatGPT, it will bring out the strength of it, right? Same thing with, it asks about online only, a hybrid approach. I wasn't even thinking about this, but now, okay, if we're doing online only strategy, right? Let's say that's the strength of our company. Then we can see, okay, fast, scalable, so we can probably show some results quickly. Meeting digital habits, well, as we saw earlier on, it would have talked about Japan is not super digital savvy. So you probably want to focus on markets that's not Japan, right? You might want to think about China. You might want to think about South Korea. So as we're going through this, we are downloading this information and matching it to our context, our goal, and insight. And this is important because not every single company is comfortable sharing their company context, goal, insight with ChatGPT, right? So if you're not one of those people who work at a workplace that uploaded their entire knowledge system into ChatGPT, you have to decide what you can share in order to protect your company's privacy. So what you could do is, okay, actually, looking at this, we're actually going to be online only. And you tell it, okay, forget about the hybrid approach. We need to prioritize, and that's our strength, to be online only, and give me a detailed plan on this, right? That would be how you go through it. So what you're doing in this is to take what you already know here and start to sense check, identify the gaps so that we can move on to point number 3, which is the targeted dig. And this is going to separate you and your AI presentation from the other people, right? Most people just say, oh, fantastic, I'm not even going to read through this. Turn this into a presentation, right? That's better than just telling ChatGPT, hey, turn this into a presentation. But what you're going to do is, let's say you identified, right? Tell me more about the online first approach. And you can say, our company's strength is in online platforms and especially in luxury. So based on this, tell me a bit more about which market has a better fit. And our goal is to decide on one market in order to have a proof of concept. And so we need good results. We need it relatively fast. And then we need to have a scalable plan in order to roll it out either in that specific country through different verticals or in different regions that have synergies. Okay. Great. And usually what I would do is continue deep research and let it do that. But let me instead try a web search and see what it comes up with. And I will usually take 10 minutes or so for the O3 Pro reasoning. And it will be a lot faster if you change this to one of the numbered ones. But I find the results are usually better and you get the details. All right, 6 minutes and 20 seconds later, here is what it came up with. So executive snapshot, all right, we love East Asia. We found that South Korea is a good proof of concept. All right, so this actually went from China to South Korea, and South Korea aligns better with what we initially thought could be best based on our knowledge of our company and what they're trying to achieve. So that's a good sign. So let's see what it says. Right, there's demand density, there's digital readiness, there's plug and play infrastructure. All right, that's great. Cultural halo, there's K-pop and all of this that could kind of act as a tastemaker. All right. And here, all right, before I go, I just want to say this is another really cool thing about deep research right now. And this will change in the future, as one of the people at OpenAI said. Right now, it gives me a quote from Jeff Bezos. Your ChatGPT probably doesn't do that because I have told it to interact with me in a way that it should bring in anecdotes, it should bring in quotes whenever it's relevant. Okay, so this is why I'm not using Agent to do this yet because Agent doesn't have memory yet, but it will. So says the team at OpenAI. So until that's the case, I'd like it to remember what it is about my company that it knows from past chat history, what it knows about how I like to receive my answers. I tell it, give me answers usually with frameworks. I already told it that. So that's why you probably see a lot more framework-driven, format-driven ways of presenting the data. So that's one of the reasons why I like to use deep research right at this stage before we move to Agent, which we'll use in a second. All right, coming back to this. So it's continuing to tell us, all right, so here's your blueprint. You need 90 days. Here's what you're doing. You're focusing on something really small, right? We're just doing the proof of concept. Here is some competitive product angles. Fantastic. Here's some risks that you have to be conscious of, which is great, right? So as you see, this is not even deep research. It was just a web search, and we can go so much further than that. As you see, maybe, okay, based on this, I actually think of, okay, for my company, we've done this exercise before. Marketing actually has a whole project on this. What I can do is then either update it, upload it if it's okay. I'm working with the Teams version of ChatGPT or something like that. Or I want to take the key findings and give it that context. So based on this context, help me find what are some of the white space that we should consider. Give me 3 options, right? And then you can bring it to that meeting where you're going to discuss all of this. So as you can see, we can absolutely draw a nuance, and all it took was 6 minutes. Like, again, this is insane. That's why we want to use this. Now, the problem is, though, it's not a presentation, right? So what are we going to do with this? I think, well, the next step, we go on to the presentation, right? You can, but I think there's actually a better step in between, which is we want to do a framework-driven outline. So by default, ChatGPT is going to give you a general presentation when it asks for it, because you probably, if you've Googled presentation templates and things like that, things are broad, right? Things are average. Visuals are crap. The way things are structured, I mean, there's a regular flow to it, but it is not elevated. It is not sharp. It is not critical. So what we're going to do is use some frameworks in order to tell it, hey, this is how I want my slide to be. And you're going to give it some constraints on what you want. So for example, I mean, there's lots of ways to do this. I'll give you a good example to get started, which is you want to start with an exec summary. Okay, then move to it could be a move to a SWOT analysis in your slides, or it could move to a CQA. But this is so classic, right? Situation, complication, question, answer, style. One other framework that I really like is SCR, something I teach in my courses, which is surprise, complication, and resolution. Okay, so you tell it, this is where I want you to start. This is where I want to spend the bulk of the ideas here. And then we want to end with a conclusion plus risks at the end. All right, so this could be what you bring to your slides. So now what we're going to say is create a presentation outline based on the data that we have here. It will be a 10-page presentation. The first page is an executive summary that gives us an overview of both the situation, the complication, the question, and the answer. So yes, East Asia is an opportunity, and we're going to start with Korea. Then we're going to lay out the SWOT analysis of each of the markets. And then we're going to come to a few slides on why Korea is the right answer. Then we have one slide on the conclusion and another slide on risks with Korea. Here we go. And we don't even, and let me list key data with sources. Okay. Let's see what I can do. So what we did in the prompt here is to, again, tell AI something very concise, something very specific of what we actually want, right? We say 10-page presentation. Okay, keep it short. Maybe the meeting is only going to be 30 minutes. You don't have more time to deal with more than 10 pages, right? You always need an executive summary so that everyone on the first page, even if they're not prepared, they can quickly get up to speed on where we're at. Then we say, okay, these are the two things I know my stakeholders will be curious about, so I'm going to put that out there, right? We've got frameworks dotted everywhere, and in the end, we want it to give us the conclusion again, and then give us the risks, and then make sure that data is everywhere, because for most organizations, we need that data. And since we have it already, we want to make sure it's included. Okay, so now the model is going to reason and give us the outline. So let's see what it comes up with in a bit. All right, 8 minutes later, here is our slide outline. Okay, 10 slides. Let's see what it came up with. All right, executive summary, situation. Here's where it is, Asia Pacific, large. All right, complication, growth is uneven. Okay, that's good. It's moving towards, South Korea is doing well. Question is which East market can deliver fast online first proof of concept and scale, right? It remembers what it is I asked it to do. And here's the answer. Start in South Korea. For these few good stats that, the leadership can just look at it and say, okay, yeah, those seem really reasonable. And here's some market context. Great. So then it goes into, here's a SWOT analysis. All right, I would actually do another slide before here, just a general market overview with some more stats to back up the situation. But, that this is fine. So, okay, we've got Japan, we've got South Korea, we've got Hong Kong, we've got Taiwan. That's fine. Why Korea? Product market fit. And why does it say market product fit? We'll have to change that. Demand, digital DNA, cultural catalyst, infrastructure shortcut. All right, why Korea? We talk about the speed to proof and scalability, which is one of our criteria. Okay, so that's not too bad. Oh gosh, micro K idle live stream drop. I don't know if I put that there, but all right, it's not too bad. Here's the conclusion and here's the key risks. All right, based on this, then of course, if you feel like, okay, this is great, then this could be great, or you go in there and you change it. So for example, a few of the tweaks I would make is actually, number one, I would add one more slide in between to do the general market, And then I probably have another slide that does comparison between each of the markets. I would actually move the SWOT analysis probably to the index. So I'll have the overviews, even though I told ChatGPT, hey, I want the SWOT in the middle. Now that I see it, I actually don't want it there. So I'll move the SWOT analysis to the index to say, if you want to see details, you can look into each of the SWOT for the countries. Then I would spend a bit more time on why Korea, and I would actually get it probably at this point to do a bit more deep research. Like, I think this micro K idol live stream seems a bit strange. So I would say, okay, let's talk about the 90-day plan and let's go deeper. This is usually what we do inside a company. These are the criteria. Let's create something there. And then I would actually, now that I think about it, move the risks up before I do the conclusion. So for the risks, big tech rival, counterfeits, undermining trust, regulatory shifts. I will probably not use all of these. I would focus on a few big ones. Let's say if regulatory shifts and import duties make this unable to operate, what I would figure out is, what percentage increase in the regulatory shifts would actually impact us, right? Do a quick, if it goes beyond 20%, then we have to reevaluate, or we have to only focus on a certain segment of our products so that when I have the discussion, I know how to answer them and how to highlight out of all these risks that may exist, which ones are more important to think through and have plan Bs for. Okay, and also these acts as talking points, right? If we have other experts who are going to be at the meeting, ask them for their thoughts on this and say, this is the preliminary research we did, so we feel like this is where we're at. This is our plan B if we need it. What do you think, right? And the conversation becomes a lot more focused and productive. So I like that it has a source with all the data, so it makes it easier to create the slides. And at this point, it brings us to step number 5, which is the AI presentation. And here I want to make two options that you can use when creating the slides. Number one is if you want a quick and dirty, just to share your preliminary thought with your team, which has a culture of, okay, let's just don't worry about the aesthetics and all the format and stuff. We just want to get into the meat of what's happening and we want to discuss and we want to figure out a good way forward. I would say quick and dirty, and you can stay in ChatGPT and you can get everything done. Now, if you are in a company that has a different culture that cares about the polishness as much as the content itself, then I would actually, at this current stage of where ChatGPT agent is at, I would use a different software in order to get you that presentation that looks a lot better. Let's do one at a time. I'll show you the quick and dirty version first, and this requires ChatGPT agent. All right. You should see an agent icon here to choose agent. All right. And this will turn on. Right now, it's not available for people on the free plan. So if you're on the free plan, you won't be able to do this step exactly. And so you might want to do the polished version that I'll show you in a second. But if you have Plus, Pro, or Teams, you're going to be able to use this. So what we're going to tell agent is just create a presentation deck based on the outline, adding relevant data wherever possible. Okay, so what ChatGPT agent is going to be able to do is create a presentation that's different from what you were able to do with deep research and operator before. Previously, you just had a basically blank, black and white presentation. There's a bunch of text on it, and that's it. All right, this version of agent now gives you a presentation where it will cite the sources, so it's easier for you to double check, and it looks a lot better. Though I think it is still quite basic. I mean, they just rolled this out a few days ago. So as time progresses, I think we will get to a point where we won't need to do all of these steps for the sake of creating a good presentation that's professional, right? Not about cats. Though, even if that is the case, what happens is you don't want a presentation where you can't present it, right? You don't want a presentation where they say, okay, I have a question about X, and you have zero knowledge around X. And you have to then say, okay, 1 second, let me ask ChatGPT what the answer is. So the core of the process is still the same. What you see here is that agent brings together deep research, it brings together operator, if you've seen it in ChatGPT before, and all in the interface of ChatGPT. So what you can see is it will start to do research for you. It will autonomously access websites, right, and start to search for things. It will access those websites, bring it all together, and we are currently at the point where it's looking for stock images. So you can imagine this as a really smart intern of yours got a computer of its own, and you're just saying, hey, give me some data based on those outline, give me a presentation, and it's just working away by itself. You don't have to do all of the clicking for it. So this is really exciting, but there's actually a few more things that is really good about Agent that I want to show you while it's making that presentation. Number one, if you click here and you go to activity, you can actually see exactly what it's trying to do, right? It's saying, oh, okay, I saw Euromonitor's result and I'm accessing it. And let's say, okay, and I'm going through all of these. Sometimes it runs into, I can't log in, I can't get the data. So what I'm going to do is go to a different website. And so you can see its logic, which means sometimes you might say, oh, let's see one where it does. Oh, it's looking at emerging market decode. Okay, and it's looking at the Taiwanese market, but maybe you say, oh, there's a specific source I want you to look at, and because it's proprietary, I need to give you some login, right? So you can, at any time, interrupt agent and say, hey, for Taiwan, I want you to look at this, right? And access this website. So it will do that, but we said it was proprietary, so it can't actually, it doesn't have any credentials, which takes me to the second feature. You can take over the browser. When it runs into that problem, you can click and say, okay, I want to take over the browser. I want to enter my credentials. And here, ChatGPT has designed it so that when you're entering sensitive information, it's not going to record anything. It's not going to take any screenshots. So this way, you can work together with ChatGPT to access data, really great input that otherwise it doesn't have access to. Okay, so that's the second one. Then, let me go back to test. Right, okay, as it's working, the third one is if you're comfortable, and now you can connect other apps, softwares to it, right? You can have ChatGPT, Gmail, you can have GitHub, you can have Canva. So what you can say is, if I have Gmail turned on and I say, okay, can you also include 2 emails I got from the marketing team and the logistics team that send me details on previous presentations that could help me bring the right sources and analyze those. It will be able to do that if you connect it. So if you feel comfortable and your company is okay with you doing that, then imagine the wealth and the depth of the information ChatGPT can access, which means it's going to be able to give you a better nuanced answers. Now, I know for most of us, this one has a lot of issues. So even if you can't use that, you can still be the one who provide a redacted version of it, right? Instead of saying, hey, go into my email to find this, you can summarize for it and just say, okay, add these things into it as well. Okay, then another really exciting one. It's not ready yet because our task is still in progress. Once it finishes, there will be a little clock icon at the bottom, which allows us to schedule the same task again. Okay, you think, well, this doesn't really make sense, right? The market entry, we're not going to do it every single week. But imagine you're on the marketing team and you have to keep up with trends for online shopping in East Asia and do a quick snippet at the weekly East Asia meeting, right? So what you do is you schedule the task to look into the trend of East Asia, run it, let's say every Sunday, so that on Monday, when you come to your desk, your report is already there. You can tell it exactly what format you want it. Maybe you want it in a presentation form, right? And then it's going to be able to do that for you automatically every single Sunday, so that on Monday you don't have to wake up early and try to do all of this and get ready for the presentation. It's already done for you. There's a lot of potential. I'm really excited for this. Now, I will, while it's still making the presentation, I will preface by saying I said quick and dirty because currently the presentation aren't great, right? Even though, we started with, I want really professional presentations. The thing is going to give us today is not going to be, wow, this is so polished. I can take this to my shareholders and they will love it. No, it's not going to be at that level, but it will evolve to that level. So I want to show you how you can use it. So once it's ready, you're not trying to learn the ropes. You already understand it and you can already use the scrappy version of it to have the initial conversation, right? Because before we do that presentation, we have a lot of steps before. And just having all of the data thrown onto something visual, have something for everyone to react to, you're going to get a lot better conversations. So let's give this a bit more time and then we'll see the final presentation. All right, we are almost done. It's just doing some double checks at the end. It actually goes through the presentation it creates and it goes page by page to make sure everything looks good. So as you can see, what it did was it changed the layout to make sure that the summary looks good. And let me see if I can find it for you. Initially, it looked like that, right? So it's actually double checking itself, which is such a big improvement. And can I tell you how many human teammates have I had who brought slides that looked terrible? All right, so here we go. The presentation ready. Let's take a look. Remember, this is the quick and dirty version, so don't be surprised if things don't quite look good, because you can download it and you can't shift anything that is out of whack. And it gives you the sources. All right, as you can see, the first one, it seems to be referencing something and didn't actually give you the link, but this will improve. So when I first tried it, when it came out, all of my sources look like this. So they are aware of it and they are improving this. So hopefully by the time you're trying this, this is fixed. All right, okay, so it goes through the SWOT. These are great. Right, we have the sources. So we can actually double check. All right. So why South Korea? It even gives you little icons and tries to use different formats. And I can tell you, even though it looks like this now, don't worry, these are quick fixes. And what we're trying to do with this version is have the content to be high level. Not that it looks really flashy and good, but we can actually say, all of these are going to create great discussions, okay? And this is the quick and dirty version. One of the things I would change here immediately that it hasn't picked up is that every single one of these headings, I would change them not as just vague headings, but actual takeaways from each of the slide. So for example, for the executive summary, I would say something like exec summary, East Asia presents a lot of opportunities as the largest market, and we can consider starting from South Korea because of high per capita luxury spend and digital adoption. Now, if that's way too long, I would ask ChatGPT, hey, condense it further for me, and I would do these for each one of them. So people can, without reading the details, know mainland China, this is the characteristic. Japan is actually very different. And so that would be one of the first things I ask it to do. So this is the quick and dirty version. You can download, all of this together was probably 30 minutes, 40 minutes of work. So under an hour, if you spend 20 minutes on your hypothesis forming and then 40 minutes on this, after 1 hour, you have a 10-page deck that you can start to share with people just to get an initial feel. Do you think we're on the right track? Are there anything that we're missing, right? You can have a conversation around this. Everyone will be mind blown. How can you do this after 1 hour, right? So you probably won't do this. You probably won't show this in 1 hour, right? Give yourself a little bit of breathing room. But the second thing is, if you feel like, okay, quick and dirty is not the right way, I actually want something polished, you can use AI presentation makers that are great at design, but really terrible at giving you good output. So let me show you how to do this with Gamma. Gamma, this is not sponsored, though I really like its strong design capabilities. So Gamma, if you want to sponsor me in the future, let me know. Okay, all you have to do is just sign up. I can continue with Google. And you'll see it's quite easy. So in our case, we're going to paste in text because we already went through an entire exercise of getting a lot of text onto from ChatGPT. So we're going to do presentation and we're going to paste our content here. And here we're going to take our entire outline and put it there. Now, ideally, we would have asked it to make all the changes so that it looks even better. But for the sake of argument here, let's just put this in, right? And what we want to do is ask it to preserve this exact text. And there's a couple of ways of doing this. If you want it to be polished, but still just a preliminary discussion deck, then you can preserve this. Or you can ask it to generate from notes or outline so that it could produce something that is more polished. So since we did this with ChatGPT, let me show you generate from notes or an outline. Okay, so we go next. And what you see is you can tell it the amount of text that you need. If you need to condense anything, you'll do that. All right, it has 8 cards currently, so let's make it 10. Let's see if I can generate without upgrading. And as you can see, it understands the context of what's going on, right? And what I love about Gamma is it understands, okay, I need a big text, I need it to look beautiful, right? And it understands that there's formatting that you want. Don't always love the AI generated images, but you can actually change it to stock images, so it's not a big deal. All right, it combined Japan and Hong Kong together. Probably wouldn't do that, but that's all right. You can also edit. All right, it's continuing to generate. It creates icons that look a lot better than ChatGPT's current version, though I would be curious how it evolves in the future. And as you can see, right, everything looks really easy. If you need to edit for anything, you can go in here, maybe, oh, this looks way too much, I want to make it shorter. It'll be able to do that, right? Or you say, hey, actually help me expand. That would be great too. I'm not going to go into a full detailed tutorial on Gamma. If you're interested in that, just let me know. There's lots of things that you can set from the get-go. So what we're doing is just trying to improve the actual content of the presentation so that it looks good, right? Coming back to the initial question is how can it be professional? And in honesty, it has to combine the human and AI, at least at this point. And you'll see that in the Harvard study, they found that when people are really great at working with AI, there's 2 types of people. There's those who are like centaurs and there's those who are like cyborgs. And what they mean is that there's people who understand the frontier so that they know, okay, for AI, it's going to have roles like this. For me, I'm going to have roles like this. So we've put that into our workflow, right? We said, okay, the hypothesis with all the context, with all the insight, with all of the goals of our company, that's my job. AI doesn't know that. And our company is not giving it that information. So you say, I'm going to come up with a hypothesis and I want you to do the research because you're faster, you're quicker, and you can look at more. And then I'm going to spot where are the gaps so that we can fill it, right? That's one way. And then there's the cyborgs, which are more, there's more seamlessness to what you're doing. So for example, it gave us context around this is what I want, but then you say, okay, based on that, make a tweak to this, make a tweak to that. So you have more of a intertwined and working together attitude to AI. And in honesty, we want to use both, right? And in the workflow, we've embedded both characteristics so that you can get the most out of AI. So this is the workflow that gives me top quality AI presentations, and it gives value to why I'm there presenting and why I can answer more questions, and I can work together with my colleagues instead of just saying, hey, anyone can click a button and give you a presentation and that's the end of that. So if you like this, check out this other AI workflow I use to improve the input, to improve my output, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye.